wet paper towel at that time. He could not sleep horizontal or eat solid food, again, while battling this tumor. And so they wanted to wait until the esophagus healed up before going and giving him some more radiation. And they did, and they waited, and it was almost healed up, but they said the tumor was starting to move, and they decided to go after the tumor. And about a month later, again, he was deemed cancer-free. They got it. They got it all. And he was still having problems with the hole in his esophagus. And so, beautifully, his neighbors decided to throw a fundraiser in for him to help pay for, all the stuff that wasn't covered. I actually flew in for it to surprise him. I didn't tell him I was coming. And Alan didn't come. He didn't come to his own party, and I was actually a little upset with him. Sadly, he had gotten himself so excited and worked up over the party that he aspirated. And he went to the hospital that next morning, and they put a feeding tube in him about a week later, and he took it out after a day. He didn't want to live that way. He was a great man, a great friend. He held on. I actually flew back to see him one last time, and it was amazing. He held on to talk to me and his wife one last time, and then he left.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but Alan's a big motivation, because when he was going through what he was going through, this was 12 years ago, and I didn't know any better because I had no idea what RSO could do or anything else. So sadly, he never got to try medical marijuana, really. And we will have a strain for him one day, and a special edible made for him once the kitchen fires up again. But he's one of my motivations, and I learned a lot after. Today, I would have suggested he take RSO and maybe even forego the radiation, and who knows, maybe they wouldn't have looked for more cancer. I don't know. But we didn't know that then.
It's frightening that the procedures that are used to diagnose can cause so much damage, but sometimes they're a necessary evil, but I'm so sorry to hear that he went through that. That's tragic.
One other thing I noticed, you mentioned things you learn over the years, is, everyone says that, there's all these people, there's all stoners, they're just getting their cards, and I'll argue that I thought a little bit of that as well before I got in the industry and opened the store. And I'll tell you that 70 to 90% of the people that are using marijuana, I believe, are using it medically, whether they know it or not. What that means is a lot of people, yes, do have the medical cards, and there's probably a few people that should have their cards that just don't. But I'll argue that most of the other people that just think they're using it recreationally don't realize it, but they're actually sleeping better, or they're calmer. They're not drinking as much. They don't take as many of their pills. Their stomachs feel better. They go to the bathroom better. Their memory's better. I mean, that's the other one that's just such a misnomer, is on memory. Marijuana really rebuilds brain cells. It doesn't kill brain cells. If you're losing your memory, it's not from marijuana. One of our cases that's most exciting is I love to work with law enforcement when possible, and in a proactive way. And we have a former officer. We've worked with several. One we did solve his first cancer, and sadly his second. Another one, though, his mother-in-law has had Alzheimer's now, going on about 2 years now, and she's shown no progression. She actually seems fresher than the day I met her 2 years ago. And they credit cannabis.
It's helping so many, but I think you're absolutely right to say that a lot of people who are using cannabis socially, as you say, are self-medicating without knowing it. And when you have a craving for something, it's because your body needs it. If you are craving chocolate, chances are you're needing some of the antioxidants that exist in chocolate. And perhaps you need the CBD that's in chocolate, because there is some, not much, but there is some. And I think the same goes for cannabis. There are a lot of teens who gravitate toward it because it actually helps them to focus, or it makes them feel less anxious.
That was me. That was me, honestly. I enjoyed it through high school and college. I got out of college, all my friends were quitting for work or jobs or spouses, and I enjoyed it. I would go to work some days and sit down at my desk and could not get started. There was too much staring at me. I couldn't figure out where to get going. Go outside, take a few puffs, come back in, done by noon. Just became task oriented. It gave me focus. And I never thought of myself as someone with ADHD or anything like that. But when I look back on it, it's exactly what it was. And so I was medicating without knowing it. Sure, some of them want to see stars and giggle and laugh and listen to Pink Floyd. And that can be therapeutic and medical too. But it's not that old commercial, this is your brain on drugs. It's not that.
Yeah.
You know, if anything, it turns on your brain, in my opinion. It acts as a sensory enhancer in many ways.
Yeah.
If you decide you want to go the other way, you'll go the other way.
Well, there are some people now who are trying to correlate the uptick in gun violence to cannabis use, which is the most ridiculous thing. I mean, clearly they've never imbibed in cannabis themselves, because if they did, they'd realize that cannabis does not trigger violent outbursts. I mean, and some people correlate cannabis with psychosis for people who are diagnosed with schizophrenia. And there's never been any proof to say that cannabis will trigger psychotic breaks. But I think we do need to remain objective. And there's not enough research to rule it out. So these people are getting away with saying these things. They're doing research based on reefer madness. And it's really quite a shame.
There's no research to rule it out, because there really hasn't been. But all these reports and all these things are being based on opinion papers. These aren't real research and numbers in American with no biases and tests, and placebos or anything. These are just opinion papers that are funded by either NIDA, our government, which is NIDA, but by groups that don't want to see the positive effects. We had this exact discussion with Sue Sicily on Monday. It was asked, do you see cannabis contributing to psychosis or depression or any of these negativities that you're hearing about? And she said, absolutely not. These are opinion papers. These are people's opinions because they've looked at other people's opinions, basically regurgitating it to create the message that they're being paid to create.
And if anybody would know for sure, it would be Sue Sicily. She's an MD who is a psychiatrist, so she would be well aware. Let me ask you something, because it's in the news. The vaping problem and these deaths that are occurring, is it possible that it's the metallic nature of the cartridge as much as it could be, the ingredients?
Yeah, I don't believe so. I believe it's the ingredients, because most of us are using cartridges that are coming from wherever, China, or some are made in the U.S., but even if they're different cartridges, they're not, their composition is, I don't believe it's that different to me. But it's what goes into the cartridge. And if this was a real problem to cannabis, it would have exploded in Colorado 5 years ago.
Yeah.
We would have been hearing it drastically. What this is a recent discovery of using vitamin E as the thinning agent for the oils. Mostly it's occurring in nicotine products. However, I did hear of one cannabis product out of Oregon that was pulled off the shelves. That was in a dispensary. That was in Oregon that I know of. In Arizona, we've talked to our manufacturers. Nothing we carry has anything close to vitamin E. We don't carry anything that even has coconut oil because we don't believe that to be healthy. The cartridges we carry are all cannabis-derived terpenes or derived from plants, and not from anything else, not PG, not PFG, or coconut oil. And it's really important what you use. I hope that I'm correct, absolutely accurate in what I'm telling you, but as far as I know, that's what I've seen. Again, vitamin E was probably chosen because people thought they were giving people something healthy as a vitamin, as well as maybe less expensive than cannabis terpenes to use as a thinning agent, particularly in the cannabis products.
Yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, I was curious about that because what struck me is that it's entirely possible that this vaping issue could be used against the cannabis industry when it comes to pending legislation. And it's pretty scary. And we certainly don't need any big mishap like this to be associated specifically with cannabis. And some of the people who are talking about this are saying, yeah, children are becoming addicted to marijuana vaping, which couldn't be farther from the truth. It's more the nicotine causing this huge problem among teens, although I'm sure that there's black market cannabis out there that is unsafe, which is another reason we need to have an end to prohibition. But
you bring up a good point about the nicotine and the jewels and so forth. And to me, I find that those are something to be really concerned about, to keep those out of the hands of the children, patients, and everybody, because they're nicotine based and it's highly addictive. It doesn't smell. They think they're safe and being healthy. And after 2 or 3 weeks, a 14-year-old is going to be addicted and not know how to stop. That's really scary to me. Whereas with cannabis, it's not going to be physically addictive to them.
Right.
That is a big epidemic right now. It's kind of an unspoken one because all the nice kids are doing it, and no one wants to admit their nice kids are doing it.
There are so many issues that we need to address around this, and
you know what? I started really learning about cannabis. I mean, I've studied it for a long time. But I learned the most, say, since 2009 or 10, because that's when I felt that it worked for me for pain. I had used it for other things, but I tried salves and tinctures in 2009 and was amazed because I actually thought it might be a little bit of urban myth until I tried it. But no, it's really all education, learning about all the products. I would welcome anybody who's afraid of marijuana or cannabis or the dispensaries to go one day with some classes and try to have an open mind. Next door, we have a conference room that we may use to put on some intro classes, kind of a cannabis for new consumers maybe. But something that we educate them and make them realize it's not what the government told us.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think you're right. Well, I'm getting the signal that it is time for us to wrap this up. So this has been just such an enjoyable conversation, and I'm so happy that you were able to join me. So thank you, Steve.
No, definitely. I appreciate it. Maybe we can come out here sometime. I'd love to show you the store.
Yeah, I would love to do that. So it is time to bring yet another episode to a close. Once again, I'd like to personally thank my guest, Steve Shapiro, for sharing his insights and knowledge with us today. If you'd like to learn more about the work that he's doing at Superior Organics, please visit us online at thecannabisreporter.com. Click podcast to find today's episode, and there you will find his bio along with information and a link to his website. We have so many people to thank. First, I'd like to express our gratitude to our partners, Canosphere Biotech. We certainly couldn't be doing this without you. I'd also like to thank our production team here at The Cannabis Reporter for always making us shine. And it goes without saying just how much we appreciate our programming directors at XRQK Radio Network and Society Bites Radio for distributing our show. And last but not least, thanks to all of you for listening. I'm Snowden Bishop, inviting you to join me again next week, same time, same place, for another episode of the Cannabis Reporter Radio Show. Until we meet again, be safe, stay informed, share what you've learned, and make it a great day.
green is calling.